and on the change, that the move is towards lower rates but fewer avoidance measures and exemptions. So if you look at high net worth individuals, there are a number of tax avoidance removal measures in this budget, along with the reduction in surcharge. So if you look at market-linked debentures, if you look at very high value insurance policies, and a few other measures, so the marginal rate is coming down, but some of the devices used predominantly by those in that highest marginal tax rate are also being rationalized. So it's not necessarily a net reduction, it is a reduction from a high marginal rate inducing certain avoidance devices to a lower marginal rate with fewer opportunities to avoid.
74, please.
One's mind being part of a political party. But consistent with what we believe, we placed our emphasis and priorities on those. And that's what you've seen in the budget.
मैडम, मेरा सवाल है आपसे। मैं संजय शर्मा हूं, लोकमत अखबार से। मैडम, आपके बजट में विपक्ष की तरफ से कोई ज़्यादा प्रतिक्रिया नहीं है ये, लेकिन इस बजट से महिलाओं को काफ़ी उम्मीदें थी। घर की महिलाओं को जो महंगाई से पीड़ित थी, रसोई गैस के सिलेंडर के दुगने दामों से पीड़ित थी, कहीं ना कहीं आटे से लेकर के रोटी तक सारी चीज़ें महंगी हो गई है। तो क्या इससे आपको लगता है कि कुछ इसमें महंगाई पे भी फर्क पड़ेगा, और घर की जो रोटी है, जो घर की जो रसोई का जो सामान है, उसमें इस बजट से कुछ फर्क पड़ेगा?
गवर्नमेंट का निर्णय को देखे होंगे कि गेहूं के लिए मार्केट में रिलीज करने के लिए आदेश हुआ है, जिससे गेहूं के दाम कम होने के इतना क्लियर इंडिकेशन है, जिससे सीधा घर में रसोई में फर्क पड़ेगा ही पड़ेगा। सो उसको आप बोलना नहीं है, ये नहीं है कि मैं उसके ऊपर कुछ बजट में नहीं बोले, मगर बजट से बोलने से पहले एक्शन ही हो गया है ना, कि घर की रसोई के लिए गेहूं आटा के लिए मार्केट में रिलीज करने के लिए निर्णय सरकार ऑलरेडी कर चुकी है। एक मिनट।
साथ ही साथ जो है महिला जो है वो भी एक परिवार का सदस्य है, तो जो रिलीफ जो इतना टैक्स पर्सनल इनकम टैक्स में दिया गया है वो भी परिवार के पास में और महिला के पास में आएगा, उसके हाथ में आएगा, जिससे वो अपना घर का खर्चा चला सकती है। सो वो भी एक महिला के लिए, हमें नहीं देखना चाहिए कि महिला के लिए नहीं है, वो भी महिला के लिए एक बेनिफिट है।
गेहूं पुरुषों के लिए भी है और महिला के लिए टैक्स भी है।
Hi ma'am, Meghna Mittal from ET Now. The fiscal glide path that you have given is 4.5% by 2025-26, which may be considered slightly bold, but does it also indicate your confidence in continuing tax buoyancy in the coming years?
Somanathan has already answered it. Yes, tax buoyancy, as you saw even yesterday, GST collection figures have come. Direct taxation buoyancy is also observed in the current year. That is one thing. I think to the credit of this team, there's been a very robust management of macroeconomics. That certainly bears an impact. So all of us might talk about this particular step or that particular step, but I think together, revenue, expenditure, disinvestment, banking, all of us together have worked in such a way that where you can earn more through tax avoidance related measures, and similarly where you can bring in more people into the tax net, you are taking steps. Similarly, prudent ways of effective expenditure without cutting down expenditure, committed expenditure or other expenditure, are all ways in which you're making money mean more. And for every rupee that you spend, you get a better set of returns. So I think efficient management also has a very big role to play here.
I just wanted to add to your question. The estimates in the budget, the revenue estimates in the budget, do not assume a buoyancy greater than 1 for the coming financial year. It assumes a buoyancy of 1. Gross taxes are expected to grow by the same 10.5% by which we have estimated the GDP to grow, which is slightly lower than the figure implied by the economic survey. And therefore, we are assuming only a buoyancy of 1. But if the experience of this year is repeated next year, then it may in fact be more than 1. But we have taken a conservative assumption. And I think the very fact that the commitment to 4.5% was reiterated word by word in this budget gives you an indication that we feel that we have the means and the ability to reach that target by 2025-26. I would also point out that many of our expenditure increases are on discretionary spends. We have kept a very tight lid on the irreducible types of expenditure, and therefore there is room in the budget, both on the revenue side and on the expenditure side, for us to reach that fiscal deficit target by 2025-26. And it is not likely that the finance minister has reiterated it in Parliament today.
Ma'am, Timsi Jaipuria from CNBC TV 18. Ma'am, I have two questions. Firstly, on the TDS reforms, you've come out with two specific reforms. For one, 20% TDS on foreign investments. Why has this been introduced? Is it to curb the flight of capital or investments which was going outside the country? And secondly, on students who are going outside to study, on that also the TDS has come, there's a 5% that has been levied, or it has been reduced.
There is no change on education, or absolutely not. That's wrong. Your facts are wrong.
But what happens to the amount that one spends in staying there as a student?
First correct the thing which you've said, because yours is a very powerful voice, and that can spread among your dosts, and that can go out. No change has been made for education or health purpose, LRS. Please, I hope my voice is audible much more than Timsi's.
Thank you for correcting me, ma'am. But on the foreign capital, on the foreign investment, the TDS of 20%, if you could explain the rationale.
I think this question was asked, and I already answered it, to say that for those categories of people who are, to pay for the tax.
To make
Are you still happy with the private investment? Are you still expecting it to grow? Or do you think for the moment it is only public investment that will go on?
Hi, yesterday in the press conference, we answered this question, and we also had a slide up there in the presentation we made yesterday that private capital investment has been improving every year in the last 3 years. For example, in the first half of 2021, based on quarterly earnings reports filed by listed companies, the capital expenditure was 2.1 lakh crores, which increased to 2.4 lakh crores in 21-22 in the first half, April to September. and 22-23 it has gone up to 3.3 lakh crores. And then you look at the RBI survey on capacity utilization and investment spending plans of the respondents. There is a very clear sign that many private sector companies are looking to enhance their capital expenditure. So both in terms of intent and in terms of actual spend, private capital investment is showing very clear signs of revival. Thank you.
Ma'am, this is Ujjwal Narayan from Newsrise. Ma'am, this is your fifth budget, and when you started with, in the first budget, you talk about India reaching to a 5 trillion economy by 2025. So just I wanted to know what is the situation, because yesterday CA has put forward another goalpost of becoming a 7 trillion economy in next 7 years. So what is happening to that target? That is my simple question.
Say, we are moving along to achieve our targets, both mine and his. We'll achieve, we'll achieve.
Good afternoon, ma'am. This is Chetan from India Today Group. Ma'am, while calculating the fiscal match for FY24, how did you assume the disruptive variables like the crude prices and, of course, China unlocking and its impact on commodity prices? What was the benchmark that you the thinking behind the
This is a question that keeps coming every budget, and I keep giving you the same answer. That there is no part of the budget mathematics that has a crude price number as an input in any spreadsheet. See, because there is no direct subsidy on any petroleum product. Unlike the fertilizer price or the price of the MSP, these have direct impacts on the budget. The petrol price would have an impact only if it triggers some major change in the tax system. Otherwise, the petrol, diesel, oil prices do not directly affect our budgeting. So it is not that there were days, maybe 10-15 years ago, when there was a lot of subsidy on these commodities. At that time, a crude price assumption was inherent in the budget. Today, there is no inherent crude. The assumption we are making in the budget is only that there will be no subsidies on petrol and diesel, and the global prices will be such that there will be no subsidies. What the global price will be, I don't need to make an assumption. So no assumption has been made.
Confusion since last year when people referred to what was said in the economic survey as though it was said in the budget itself. The budget didn't say it then, the budget doesn't say it now.
मैं आमिर हूँ न्यूज़ नेशन से। पहला सवाल तो ये कि जब शुरुआत हुई थी एक तरह से मोदी सरकार की, तो कहा था कि अर्थव्यवस्था को बेहतर करने के लिए कड़वे घूंट पीने पड़ेंगे और बहुत ही कड़े मेजर्स लिए गए स्टार्टिंग में। लेकिन आज ये देख रहे हैं कि सरकार ने कड़वे घूंट पिए हैं जनता को खुश देखने के लिए। तो क्या ये एक चुनावी बजट है, इसको मानती है? और पहला ये, दूसरा ये कि इनकम टैक्स में जिस तरह से जो छूट की सीमा है, जो पहला फेज है आपका, जिसमें 7 लाख तक की छूट है, तो उसमें वो फेज आपको लगता है कि इससे राजस्व पर भार पड़ेगा? कितना भार पड़ेगा, कोई एस्टिमेट है इसमें?
We have said it in the budget speech itself as to what is the net revenue foregone. उसका घोषणा ही कर चुके हैं हम, हिडन नहीं रखे। So वो आ गया है 35,000? 35,000
direct taxes 37,000 crore, indirect taxes 1,000 crore, additional revenue through indirect taxation measures 3,000 crores, and so net is 35,000 crore.
This is Anuradha from Economic Times. In your budget speech, ma'am, you spoke about the review of financial sector regulators. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Something?
Some of these exercises, when the regulations are brought in, they serve a purpose. Thereafter, the economy changes. So all the regulators have been doing it as part of their exercise, but there's a time now to take up a comprehensive review. And if you recall, RBI had formed a committee. They did it in 2020. They came out with a report in 2021. That is an ongoing process, and other regulators also will travel in that direction, that their regulations are what the economy needs today. Whatever tweaking is required, they will take up that steps. There's their own review, not by them.
Ma'am, congratulations on your penultimate budget. And ma'am, am I audible, ma'am? Congratulations on last full budget, and I just wanted to understand, you have mentioned, alluded to Banking Regulation Act Amendment and Banking Companies Act Amendment. Is it an indication that this year we'll see privatization on that front, public sector banking front? And if you could also throw some light on what kind of amendment it will undertake, apart from, allowing public sector bank for privatization.
These measures are for improving the governance of the boards and then investors protection, etc. These are not to do with any disinvestment or the privatization measures. These are the different set of measures. Over a period of time, the things have changed, and the Banking Regulation Act also fall in line, or not fall in line, has to be aligned with the present day needs, what the directors are, who can be there, what their terms are going to be. So those kind of amendments are there. And one component, of course, is on the investors protection areas as well.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Rima Sharma from Protibimba Life. My question, my question is regarding MSME sector in the northeast, especially in Assam. During pandemic, that Assam handloom sector and bamboo sector badly affected. Many artisans forced to close their work. So in your budget, you have saying something, MSME sector, you have given some relief and widen the possibilities. So as Gamusa also getting GI tag this time, so do you have any special relief for the Assam and northeastern artisans, especially in the handloom sector and bamboo sector?
In the last year's budget itself, I think for sustaining livelihoods and also making sure that the northeast livelihoods are attended to, we came up with a specific program called PM Divine for the development of Northeast, and that was executed through the Northeastern Council. So that program continues, and that will take care of livelihood related, whether it is in the weavers or in any other such community.
But after getting the GI tag in the Gamusha, do you have any special package for the encourage to the handloom sector?
So that is something which the state government will have to tag along with the existing programs, either through the handicrafts program, the artisan and other things that we're coming up with, for which the rules will come out, either they can use it, or the textile ministries. I'm sure they can always find out from the textile ministry for GI tagged Gamusha, they can ask for a dispensation. So this is possible, but that is for the state government to interact with the respective ministries.
Can you little bit elaborate what kind of
I can't elaborate more, ma'am. You should ask the state government to deal with it for the respective ministry.
In your budget relief, what kind of relief you have given? Can you little bit elaborate it?
In my budget relief.
The MSME sector.
For MSME or for Gamusha or for GI, what are you asking? I'll send you some information. Ma'am, let's move on with other questions.
Good evening, ma'am. Arup from Business Standard. Ma'am, in this year's fiscal policy statement also you're speaking about unprecedented global headwinds and challenges. And again, you have not given forecast for the two succeeding years, in this case FY 24-25 and 25-26, although you have an internal consolidation roadmap. So are we going to see this as a new normal where you're not amending the FRBM Act again, and you're not giving two succeeding years forecast, but you will continue having an internal roadmap? Yeah. Yeah, but you're not amending for the third consecutive year. You're not amending the FRBM Act, and you're not giving 2 succeeding years targets.
Yeah, but we have given a glide path, and we are every budget stating whether we are aligning with the glide path given or not, right? So that pandemic was the new normal for 2 years, hasn't it been?
Hi, I'm Siddharth from Money Control here. The gross borrowing number is 15.4 lakh crores. Net is gross borrowing is 15.4 lakh. Net is 11.8 lakh. Especially with real interest rates returning to positive territory in the last few months with the RBI hiking rates. Do you see borrowing costs for companies rising, especially and perhaps the government crowding out the private sector? And could that impact private investments?
So I think the question of crowding out, actually the increase in borrowing over the previous year is 8%. The economy has grown at a nominal rate of 15% over this same period. So this is a level of borrowing which I think will not lead to any incremental crowding out. In fact, as a percentage of the size of the nominal economy, the total gross borrowing is actually going to be lower in 23-24 than in 22-23. So incremental crowding out, I think, is not a significant issue, and that I do not think will lead to any impact on borrowing costs in the private sector.
This is reiterating that point that expect the required borrowings for the next year are of the same order what they are in the current year. Of course, the size of the economy has gone up. So it is not that the more money is being taken out of the savings which are available into the economy. So we don't see that impacting because it is of the same order. And even if you go 2 years back and just increase by nominal rates, the borrowings are, net borrowings are of the same order.
In fact, they are less than 2% more than the actuals. The figures stated were, I think, for the BE, but actually it will be only, estimates are that it will be less than 2%. Economy is nominally expected to grow at more than 10.5%. So, I mean, that should answer your question.
Ma'am, Aishwarya Paliwal from India Today. Ma'am, opposition parties have been calling this Nil Batta Sannata not good enough budget. Your comments?
I don't follow your Hindi. Would you say that again?
Ma'am, they said not good enough. Most of the opposition parties for the budget. Ma'am, your comment on that?
For what reasons, if I may know? Not good enough for? What reasons, ma'am? If you would like to repeat their words.
They have said, ma'am, most of the political parties.
I'm saying, if you could please repeat their words and say, not good enough, for what reasons per se?
They said nothing for the, they said nothing much for the middle class.
What?
Most of the, yeah, this is what those parties. Ma'am, do you believe India will remain a bright spot, ma'am?
Please do. Next question, please.
Ma'am, my name is Mukesh and I work for Newsrise. Just wanted to know, is there a component of green bonds in the... does it contain green bonds also? I mean, what would be the component of green bonds? Sovereign green bonds.
Repeat your question, please.
Interrupted me. So basically, in this overall gross borrowing that we have for the year, what component of that would be in form of green bonds?
See, for the current year of $2 billion, one installment has already been done 1 week back, another one will be done a week later. So for the next, and the monies which we are going to raise now through these bonds, $2 billion, will be used for the projects which have been identified. And if those projects require in the pipeline that they require more money, then we will raise money through the green bonds, but that will be part of the overall borrowings which have been suggested. Pardon?
There is no target for green bonds for next year. It is something which will evolve as the year goes
on. Ma'am, this is Primangshu from Anandavajar Patrika. You have said that your capital expenditure has reached 10 lakh crore, but the interest payment expenditure that has also reached 10 lakh crore. and the interest payment burden, it is almost 40% of the revenue received. So do you think it is a matter of concern for?
It is always desirable for a government to have its interest payments as low as possible. But you are aware of the reasons for which government had to borrow a lot over the last 3 years. And all that I can say is the borrowings have been used very constructively towards growth-inducing investments and have not been frittered away on unproductive expenditure. Therefore, if the economy keeps growing at the rate that it has started to grow at now, then this is unlikely to be an unsustainable debt burden. We are quite confident that the interest burden will gradually come down as the GDP keeps growing. And to sustain that growth, the quality of expenditure, the quality of government expenditure is increasing. The revenue deficit is falling even faster than the fiscal deficit. So we are actually seeing an improvement in the quality of public expenditure, which will enable us to sustain this higher interest burden, which is a result of history. 2 years of COVID, where the entire globe has seen an increase in interest burden in all governments all over the world.
Good afternoon, ma'am. This is Karishma here from Business Today Television. Congratulations to you and everybody for yet another successful budget. Ma'am, you did talk about simplification of the tax regime. So my question is on the capital gains tax regime that was also expected. It was not a part of the budget announcement, but it's expected that a simplification could be done in the coming months. Is that something on the cards? And also, ma'am, secondly, no big bang announcements on cryptocurrency in this budget. What is the kind of update with the consultation paper that had to be submitted also to the FSDC?
For your question, first question, I have no answer because it's your expectation. You kept about it for the last few months and then you want me to answer on that? Oh, have they been? They've not told me about it. No. To say now.
मैम मैं आलोक सीएनबीसी आवाज हूँ सर। मैम मेरा सवाल यह है कि जो टीडीएस को लेकर क्लैरिफिकेशन आई हैं और उसमें खास तौर से जो 10,000 का जो थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिट है कई सारी चीज़ों पर ख़त्म कर दिया गया है, खास तौर से ऑनलाइन गेमिंग को लेकर। इसके पीछे क्या रीज़न है? ऑनलाइन गेमिंग को लेकर अभी भी क्या सरकार काफ़ी कॉन्शियस है या ऐसा लग रहा है कि अभी भी टैक्स लीकेज है वहाँ से, या बाकी चीज़ों पर भी जो ख़त्म किया गया है ये टीडीएस के लिए जो 10,000 का एग्जाम्पशन, उसके पीछे क्या रीज़न है?
देखिए, टीडीएस जो ऑनलाइन गेमिंग पे है अभी प्रत्येक विनिंग के ऊपर में था, लेकिन जो ऑनलाइन गेम्स हैं वो कई सारे गेम्स मिला करके एक सेशन बनता है। एक गेम कोई नहीं खेलता है, कई सारे गेम्स जो हैं एक साथ खेलते हैं। तो इसलिए जो टीडीएस अब लागू होगा वो समस्त गेम्स पे सामूहिक रूप से जब नेट जो विनिंग होगा, जो वो अपने पैसा जो उनका जो एक अकाउंट में से वो निकालेगा, तभी उसके ऊपर में देखा जाएगा कि कितना उसने प्रॉफिट कमाया है, कितना उसका विनिंग हुआ है, उसके ऊपर में टैक्स जो है लगेगा और उसी के ऊपर में टीडीएस भी लगेगा। और यदि वो 10,000 रुपए से अधिक है तो टीडीएस पहले लगता था, अब वो 10,000 की लिमिट हमने हटा दी। तो लिमिट तो हटा दिया है, लेकिन ग्रॉस पे लगेगा और नेट पे लगेगा और प्रत्येक विनिंग के ऊपर में नहीं लगेगा। ये हमने बदलाव किया। So 2 changes have been made. One is that the taxation will be on the net winnings, because in online games generally you play a series of games over days. You don't play it, just one game, and like you would be doing, say, race horsing would be maybe once in a while, but this is over a period of time. So whatever are the net winnings, when you take that money from your account that you have made with the online gaming platform, the tax will be on that. So this is one change. The other change is that The TDS previously was on each winning, irrespective of the amount, on 10,000 and more. If the winning is 10,000 and more, so some of the online gaming companies were keeping winnings lower than 10,000, say 9,999. So that we have removed. So there is no now threshold on TDS. That is the second change.
Hi ma'am, this is Priyashmita from Informist Media. Ma'am, I wanted to know that there has been an upward revision in the small savings estimates for FY23. However, data suggests that there is a shortfall. So how do you plan to achieve it?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I mean it shows good awareness of our numbers. I'm happy to see people read our deep statements with so much attention. It is a good question. What I can say is the market borrowing number is completely firm. That will not change. The remaining numbers have a little bit of fluidity, whether it is small savings, state government provident fund is a very fluid number. See, because if state governments change that number, it affects the overall balance of our funding plans. The market borrowing number is firm. The small savings number is, there is traditionally a seasonality where a lot of small savings comes in the last quarter because people plan their taxes in the month of February and March. So there is usually an upsurge. Will it reach this number or not? You see, these numbers are subject to a number of assumptions. But we are confident that in aggregate, the other sources except market borrowing, the aggregate of them will be close to what we have estimated. And therefore, I don't think this will have any impact on markets. Now, in terms of small savings, again, the date from which these new schemes come into operation is yet to be decided. So there are a number of factors on which the small savings number could fluctuate. But I repeat, it will not affect the market borrowing numbers. No, she's talking about FY22-23 is my impression. Current financial year. Yes, I'm also talking about that. Again, the next year, 14 months before the end of the year, I cannot be firm on next year's numbers, but they are as firm as we can make them 14 months ahead of time. Well, I mean, if there is a shortfall somewhere, there is an increase somewhere else. We have shown you all the numbers as to how we meet the deficit of this year. How is it going to be funded? I have the statement, you have the statement too, since you have obviously read it, so I don't need to tell you. So that's how we will fund it. So this is a big budget in which something goes up, something goes down. Revenues have gone up, expenditures have gone up, some things have gone down. But in aggregate, as I said, we are confident of being within our market borrowing numbers. We are confident that the deficit that we have projected for the revised estimate is reasonable and will not be exceeded significantly. It will not be exceeded significantly. Beyond that, I cannot give you a pinpoint. You cannot land a Boeing 747 on a helipad. So, it's a huge thing. There will be minor, fluctuations here and there. But at a macro level, our numbers are good. I'm confident about us.
मैम नमस्कार, मेरा नाम महावीर सिंह है, फ्रीलांसिंग करता हूँ। दो छोटे से स्पष्टीकरण चाहिए थे। एक तो 7 लाख रुपए तक की आय जो आपने कर मुक्त की है, वो दोनों उसमें है, पुराना और नया, या सिर्फ नए में है? ओके। और एक आपने घोषणा की कि जो गाड़ियों के स्क्रैप के लिए सरकार कोई सपोर्ट कर रही है, उसके पीछे क्या मंशा है सरकार की? क्यों इस तरह के उसको बढ़ावा दे?
मंशा यही है कि एनवायरनमेंट के लिए पुराना गाड़ी को हटाना चाहिए, मगर वैसे बिना इंसेंटिव हटाना भी मुश्किल है, क्योंकि लोगों को लगेगा कि हटाने में से मुझे क्या फायदा है। So incentivize करना उसके लिए.
Scrapping of vehicles and replacement of vehicles as well. What is the kind of outlay that will be there and that we'll see in the coming fiscal?
See, there are two parts to it. For the central government, all central government vehicles that are beyond the 15-year age limit will be scrapped. Those of them that need to be replaced will be replaced. This money is provided for in different departmental budgets because it is not a macro number that is planned centrally. The number is significant. It exceeds 1,000 crores. What it exactly is, I also don't know. I'd have to add it up from several books. For state governments, we are making this part of the scheme for state capital investment. If they need to replace old state government vehicles, then that support will come from this scheme. And they have to meet certain conditions on meeting the national scrapping policy. The aim is to get rid of polluting old vehicles in the government sector.
नमस्कार मैम, प्रमोद शर्मा। मैम, प्रधानमंत्री जी का नारा है कि लोकल फॉर वोकल, लेकिन जो ऑनलाइन प्लेटफॉर्म है फ्लिपकार्ट और अमेजन, इनके चलते जो छोटे छोटे दुकानदार हैं उनका कारोबार प्रभावित हो रहा है। तो सरकार की कोई ऐसी योजना है कि फ्लिपकार्ट और अमेजन से भी सरकार को कुछ नहीं मिल रहा है टैक्स जो मिलना चाहिए, तो ऐसा कुछ इन पे कुछ लगाने का जो
लोकल के लिए तो जेम में पोर्टल में एमएसएमई को स्थान मिल रहे हैं। वो उनके अपने प्रोडक्ट्स को उनके द्वारा मार्केटिंग आउटरीच करने के लिए गवर्नमेंट ई मार्केट प्लेस प्रोविजन दे रहा है। सो उनके लिए पॉजिटिव एक्शन है उधर।
Unemployment, poverty, inequality, or equity anywhere in her speech. Mercifully, she has mentioned the word poor twice in her speech. I'm sure the people of India will take note of who are in the concerns of the government and who are not. Let me turn to the numbers. Last year, the government estimated the GDP for 2021-22 at rupees 232,14,703 crore, and assuming a nominal growth rate of 11.1%, projected the GDP for 22-23 at rupees 258 lakh crore. The GDP for 21-22 has since been revised upward to rupees 236 lakh 64,637 crore. In today's budget papers, the GDP for 22-23 has been estimated at rupees 273 7 lakhs 751 crore, which yields a growth rate of 15.4%, much above the earlier estimate. Given these impressive numbers, real GDP ought to have grown in double digits. Yet the FM and the Economic Survey put the GDP growth at only 7% this year. Will the government explain? The claim of real GDP growth is on the face of lower capital expenditure. Please see the following numbers. In the current year, the BE and RE numbers, capital expenditure was budgeted at 7,50,246 crore. Revised estimate is lower at 7,28,274 crore. Grants for creation of capital assets was estimated at 3,17,643 crore. Revised is 3,25,588 crore. The effective capital expenditure was estimated at 10,67,889 crore, but revised downwards to 10,53,862 crore. Please note that both capital expenditure of the central government and the effective capital expenditure are lower than the budget estimates. So what drove growth in 22-23? We know that private investment is down, exports are down, and private consumption is stagnant. So how does the government explain the 7% growth in the current year? Besides, in 22-23, the growth rates in Q1 and Q2 have been estimated at 13.5% and 6.3% respectively. So we already have 9.9% growth in the first half of the year. If the whole year will only yield 7%, does that mean that Q3 and Q4 will record growth rates of only 4 to 4.5%? For the whole year, therefore, quarterly GDP growth rate is sliding. 13.5, down to 6.3, down to 4.2, and then eventually down to 4.0. There are other numbers which are disconcerting. The lesson to be drawn is that the government is not spending what was promised on key schemes. Now, I've given the numbers in the BE and the RE. Just look at the numbers. Agriculture and allied activities, 83,521 crore, down to 76,279 crore. PM Kisan, 68,000 crore to 60,000 crore. Education, 104,278 crore to 99,881 crore. Health, 86,606 crore to 76,351 crore. Social welfare, 51,780 crore to 46,502 crore. Urban development, 76,549 crore to 74,546 crore. This is shocking. Umbrella scheme for development of scheduled caste, 8,710 crore to 7,722 crore. Scheduled tribes, 4,111 crore to 3,874 crore. Minorities, 1,810 crore to only 530 crore. And other vulnerable groups, 1,931 crore to 1,921 crore. Now look at transfer to state. What was promised was 3,34,339 crore. But what will be transferred is only 2,70,936 crore. Where have the remaining 64,000 crore gone? No taxes have been reduced, except for the small number who have opted for the new tax regime. No indirect taxes have been reduced. There is no cut in the cruel and irrational GST rates. There is no reduction in the prices of petrol, diesel, cement, fertilizers, etc. There is no cut in the numerous surcharges and cesses which are anyway not shared with the state governments. Who has benefited by this budget? Certainly not the poor, not the youth looking desperately for jobs, not those who have been laid off, not the bulk of the taxpayers, not the homemaker, not the thinking Indians who are shocked by the growing inequality, the rise of the number of billionaires, and the wealth being accumulated in the hands of the 1% of the population. And certainly not you. You have not benefited by this budget. This much is clear. The government is determined to push the fortunes of Gift City, Ahmedabad, at the cost of other commercial and financial centers. The government is also determined to push the new tax regime, for which there are few takers for a variety of reasons. Besides, making the new tax regime the default option is grossly unfair and will rob the ordinary taxpayer of the meager social security that he may get under the old tax regime. The economic survey listed all the headwinds that the world and India will face, but did not offer any solutions to face these headwinds. Not even acknowledge the headwinds. The government is living in its own imaginary world. 3 stark facts are acknowledged the world over. 1, world growth and world trade will slow down significantly in 2023. For India, it will be 2023-24. 2, many advanced economies will go into a recession. 3, the global security situation, thanks to the Ukraine war and other brewing conflicts, will deteriorate. If all 3 materialized, what will the government do? What kind of burdens will that place on the people who are suffering owing to inflation and unemployment? There were no answers provided either in the economic survey or in the budget speech. This is a callous budget that has betrayed the hopes of the vast majority of the people.
नमस्कार साथियों, 2023-24 का जो आम बजट वित्त मंत्री जी ने प्रस्तुत किया, वो ऐसा बजट था जो भारत की आर्थिक समस्याएं जो हैं उसमें इस बजट में उन समस्याओं का कोई निवारण या उन समस्याओं को इंगित तक नहीं किया गया। आप सब लोगों को जान के ताज्जुब होगा कि पूरे बजट में बेरोजगारी, गरीबी, आर्थिक असमानता शब्द का प्रयोग तक नहीं किया गया। पुअर, गरीब का शब्द का प्रयोग भी मात्र 2 दफा पूरे बजट भाषण में वित्त मंत्री जी ने किया। इससे ये समझ में आ जाता है कि ये आम बजट किसके लिए बनाया गया था और इसका फोकस कौन था। सबसे पहले हम कुछ नंबर्स की बात करेंगे। 2021-22 में देश की जीडीपी 232,14,703 करोड़ वित्त मंत्री जी ने बताई थी और ये भी बताया कि नॉमिनल ग्रोथ 11.1% रहने की उम्मीद है। उसके अनुसार 22-23 की जीडीपी 258 लाख करोड़ रुपया होनी चाहिए थी, पर 2021-22 की जीडीपी को फिर रिवाइज किया गया। जो पहले 232.14 लाख करोड़ बताई गई, उसको 236.64 लाख करोड़ रुपया उसको रिवाइज किया गया। आज के बजट भाषण में जो मौजूदा वित्तीय वर्ष है 2022-23, इसकी जीडीपी 273 लाख करोड़ बताई। अर्थात अगर हम इसका विश्लेषण करें तो नॉमिनल जीडीपी में ग्रोथ होता है 15.4%। नॉमिनल जीडीपी में अगर 15.4% की ग्रोथ है तो रियल जीडीपी कम से कम डबल डिजिट में होनी चाहिए। वित्त मंत्री जी और आर्थिक सर्वेक्षण में इसको 7% पर बताया गया। क्या सरकार बताएगी कि ये 7% ही क्यों है? क्योंकि जो आपके बजट के जो रियल नॉमिनल जीडीपी के नंबर्स हैं वो तो कुछ और ही व्याख्या कर रहे हैं। दूसरी बात, जो सरकार का जो कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर है वो जो एस्टिमेट किया था मौजूदा वित्तीय वर्ष में 10,67,889 करोड़, 10.67889 करोड़, जबकि रिवाइज्ड एस्टिमेट में वो 10,53,862 करोड़ हुआ। मतलब जो पूंजीगत खर्चा सरकार करना चाहती थी वो भी पूरा नहीं कर पाई। अब सवाल ये उठता है कि जब प्राइवेट इन्वेस्टमेंट गिर रहा है, एक्सपोर्ट्स गिर रहे हैं, प्राइवेट कंजम्पशन मोर और लेस स्थिर बना हुआ है, जो कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर है, पूंजीगत खर्चा है, वो गिर रहा है, तो ये 7% जीडीपी अचीव हुई तो हुई कैसे? इसका कोई व्याख्या इस बजट में नहीं दी गई। उसके अलावा जो मौजूदा वित्तीय वर्ष के 2 पहले क्वार्टर के जो रिजल्ट आए, 13.5% की ग्रोथ और 6.3% की ग्रोथ, तो पहले हाफ ईयर में देश की जीडीपी ग्रोथ हुई 9.9%। अगर हम मान भी लें कि 7% की जीडीपी ग्रोथ होगी, तो आने वाले जो क्वार्टर 3 और क्वार्टर 4 है, उसकी ग्रोथ 4 से 4.5% रहेगी। अर्थात मौजूदा वित्तीय वर्ष में क्वार्टर दर क्वार्टर देश की जीडीपी ग्रोथ रेट गिरी है। मौजूदा वित्तीय वर्ष के पहले क्वार्टर में 13.5%, दूसरे क्वार्टर में 6.3%, तीसरे क्वार्टर में 4 से 4.5% के बीच, और चौथे में भी यही। तो देश क्वार्टर दर क्वार्टर मौजूदा वित्तीय वर्ष में जीडीपी ग्रोथ गिरी है। यह भी बड़ी ताज्जुब की बात है कि देश की सरकार देश की प्रमुख स्कीम्स में जितना खर्चा करने का सोचती है, उतना खर्च भी नहीं कर पाती है। कुछ उदाहरण आपके सामने रखता हूं। कृषि पर सोचा था सरकार ने कि 83,521 करोड़ रुपए खर्च करेगी, जबकि इसको रिवाइज कर दिया गया 76,279 करोड़। पीएम किसान पर 68,000 करोड़ रुपया खर्च करने का बजटरी एस्टीमेट था, जबकि वास्तविक खर्च हुआ 60,000 करोड़। एजुकेशन पर, शिक्षा 1,04,278 करोड़ रुपए खर्च करने का बजटरी एस्टीमेट था, खर्च किया मात्र 99,881 करोड़। हेल्थ पर 86,606 करोड़ की जगह 76,351 करोड़। सामाजिक वेलफेयर पे 51,780 की जगह 46,502 करोड़। शहरी विकास पर 76,549 करोड़ की जगह 74,546 करोड़। डेवलपमेंट फॉर द एससी कम्युनिटी पे 8,710 करोड़ खर्च करने का सोचा था और खर्च किया मात्र 7,722 करोड़। शेड्यूल ट्राइब्स के विकास पर सोचा था 4,111 करोड़ रुपए खर्च करेगी सरकार, खर्च किया मात्र 3,874। माइनॉरिटीज के डेवलपमेंट पे बजटरी एलोकेशन किया गया था 1,810 और खर्च किया मात्र 530 करोड़ रुपया। और जो वल्नरेबल ग्रुप्स है उनसे सोचा 1,931 करोड़ रुपया खर्च करने का बजटरी एस्टीमेट था, इसको रिवाइज करके कर दिया 1,821 करोड़। और आप सब लोगों को जान के ताज्जुब होगा कि राज्यों को जो केंद्र सरकार की ओर से जो डिवोल्यूशन के जो पैसा मिलता है, उसमें 3,34,339 करोड़ रुपया देने का उनको ट्रांसफर का बजटरी एस्टीमेट था, और दिया मात्र 2,70,936 करोड़। अर्थात ये 64,000 करोड़ रुपया राज्यों का जो हक था उनको नहीं मिला। अब करों की बात करते हैं। कोई मेजर करों में कटौती नहीं की गई, सिवाय जो न्यू टैक्स रिजीम में जो लोग ऑप्ट करते हैं उनमें छोटा सा मार्जिनल फेरबदल किया गया। जो इनडायरेक्ट टैक्सेज है उसमें कोई कटौती नहीं की गई। जो पेट्रोल है, डीजल है, सीमेंट है, फर्टिलाइजर्स हैं, इनके दाम यथावत बने हुए हैं। जो जीएसटी की इरेशनल दरें हैं उसमें कोई रैशनलिटी नहीं लाई गई। और तो और जो केंद्र सरकार बहुत सारे सेसेस इकट्ठे करती है, और ध्यान रहे सेस का पैसा राज्यों को नहीं मिलता है, वो सीधा केंद्र सरकार के पास जाता है। उन सेसेस में भी सरचार्जेस में भी किसी तरह की कोई कटौती नहीं की गई। तो सवाल ये उठता है कि ये बजट से किसका फायदा हुआ? एक बात तो सत्य है कि इससे गरीब लोगों का कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ। जो युवा पीढ़ी है जो रोजगार की तलाश कर रही है उनका भी कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ। जो लोगों को नौकरी से निकाला गया है पिछले 2 साल 1 साल में उनको भी कुछ नहीं मिला। जो टैक्स पेयर्स है जो कि समय पर कर देते हैं उनको भी कोई बड़ा रिलीफ नहीं मिला। जो माताएं बहनें गृहिणियां हैं उनको भी किसी तरह का फायदा नहीं हुआ। और तो और वह हर एक व्यक्ति जो भारत के बारे में सोचता है उनको भी आज के बजट से सिर्फ और सिर्फ निराशा और हताशा हाथ में लगी। ये बजट मुख्य रूप से उन लोगों के लिए इंगित किया गया था जिनके पास देश की अधिकांश वेल्थ है। और जो रिपोर्टें आई है, ऑक्सफैम की रिपोर्ट या और जो इनइक्वलिटी रिपोर्ट है, आपको पता होगा कि 1% भारतीयों के पास देश की कितनी कुल संपत्ति है। हाँ, एक चीज बड़ी स्पष्टता से इस बजट में बाहर निकल के आई कि ये बजट अहमदाबाद की गिफ्ट सिटी को जरूर फोकस करना चाहता है और उसको एक मेजर बिजनेस हब के रूप में डेवलप करना चाहता है, फाइनेंशियल सेंटर के रूप में डेवलप करना चाहता है, वाणिज्यिक सेंटर के रूप में डेवलप करना चाहता है। हाँ, जो नए टैक्स रिजीम में जो करदाता कर देते हैं उनको कुछ फायदा मिला, पर ये करके सरकार ये कहना चाह रही है कि जो लोग पुराने कर टैक्स रिजीम में के तहत टैक्स दे रहे हैं, क्योंकि वो वहां पे उनको एग्जम्पशन का फायदा मिलता है, तो सरकार इनडायरेक्टली ये कहना चाहती है कि आप एग्जम्पशंस में इन्वेस्टमेंट मत करो, अपने आने वाले समय के लिए पैसा न मत लगाओ। आर्थिक सर्वे ने साथियों बहुत सी देश के सामने आने वाली चुनौतियों के बारे में बताया था। हमें उम्मीद थी कि वित्त मंत्री उन चुनौतियों का किस तरह सामना करेंगे, उसके बारे में विस्तार से अपने बजट भाषण में उल्लेख करेंगे। मैं 3 मुद्दे आपके सामने रखना चाहता हूं। पहला, जो 2023 का वर्ष है, इसमें दुनिया की ग्रोथ और दुनिया की ट्रेड स्लो डाउन होगी, उसका भारतीय अर्थव्यवस्था पर क्या फर्क पड़ेगा, क्या इंपैक्ट पड़ेगा, वित्त मंत्री जी इसके बारे में बिल्कुल खामोश थी। दूसरा, दुनिया की बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्थाएं रिसेशन में जाएगी, उसके कारण देश की अर्थव्यवस्था पर क्या फर्क पड़ेगा, इसके बारे में इस बजट में किसी भी तरह का उल्लेख नहीं किया गया। और लास्ट, जो वैश्विक सिक्योरिटी सिचुएशन है, उसके बाद जो और आगे आने वाले समय में और ज्यादा डेट्रियोट करेगी, उसके बारे में भी इस बजट में किसी तरह का उल्लेख नहीं है। हमारा सवाल है कि जो चुनौतियां देश के सामने हैं, अगर ये सही साबित हो जाती है तो इन चुनौतियों से निपटने की सरकार की क्या तैयारी है, सरकार इनका किस तरह सामना करेगी? क्या फिर से इन चुनौतियों के पीछे छुप के हमारे को कहेगी कि भाई बेरोजगारी इसलिए है क्योंकि ये वैश्विक चुनौतियां हमारे सामने, और जो देश के लोग भारी बेरोजगारी और भयंकर महंगाई से त्रस्त है, उससे निदान दिलाने के लिए सरकार की क्या रणनीति है, क्या नीति है, वो भी हम सवाल करना चाहते हैं। ये सारे सवाल ना तो कल जो आर्थिक सर्वे प्रस्तुत हुआ उसमें इन सवालों का उत्तर दिया गया, ना वित्त मंत्री के आज के बजट भाषण में इनका उत्तर दिया गया। तो हम यही कहेंगे कि देश के अधिकांश लोगों के लिए ये बजट उनकी आकांक्षाओं, इच्छाओं और उनकी उम्मीदों पर बिल्कुल भी खरा नहीं उतरा है।
What proportion of taxpayers have moved to the new tax regime? The Income Tax Department is expected to release basic data every year. The last data that has been released is only for assessment year 2019-20. Why has the data not been released? How many people have switched over to the new tax regime? How many of you have switched over to the new tax regime? What about those who have not switched over to the new tax regime? Has there been 1 rupee benefit for them?
So are you saying that's not a relief at all for the middle class as being claimed by the government?
First, the government must tell us how many of the middle class taxpayers have switched over to the new tax regime. The minor relief that has been given is only for those who have switched over to the new tax regime. For those who are in the old tax regime, there is no concession at all.
Considering that the world is staring at a recession and there has been a continuous fall in the GDP growth quarter by quarter in our country, do you think the targets set by the government of 6 to 6.8% are achievable?
Targets are meaningless for this government. Look at the opening few paragraphs. They say nominal growth this year has been 15.4%. But they say real growth will be 7%. Now, this is beyond my capacity to understand. How can nominal growth be 15.4 and net real growth be only 7%? I mean, somebody must explain. I'll admit that we are not very well informed, but those who are well informed should explain to us.
So you expect a further fall in
The GDP growth is falling. It was 13.5% in the first quarter, 6.3 in the second quarter, and according to their own number, the whole year will be 7%. Arithmetically, it works out only to another 8.2% in 2 quarters. So I've divided it into 4.2 and 4. You can divide it into 4.1 and 4.1.
Allocation to railway.
There's been increase. See, allocating more money for capital expenditure is good. Allocating more money for capital expenditure in railway is good. But look at the record of this government. It allocates money for capital expenditure, but spends 22,000 crore less. Will they be able to spend the additional allocation? That is the question. And how many jobs in the railways are vacant? How many exams of railways have been cancelled? So allocating money is not equal to spending the money, nor is allocating money equal to creating jobs. It's only when you actually spend the money and fill the vacancies, your objective will be achieved. You are absolutely correct. That is their intention. But there is a simpler way of doing that. Just say, after 3 years or 4 years, all exemptions will come to an end. Why are you taking this circuitous route? Simply say all exemptions will come to an end, say by 2027 or 2028, and there becomes one tax regime then. Why do you have a exemption tax regime and no exemption tax regime, and then say it's a default option? What is all this complicated exercise? The ultimate aim of the government is that tax exemptions should be abolished. Tax exemptions give some social security to the middle class today. If tax exemptions are abolished, then there must be another mechanism by which the taxpayer gets some social security.
सर, कांग्रेस के सांसद कार्तिक कमलम जो आपके बेटे भी हैं, उन्होंने तारीफ की है और उनके स्टेटमेंट की काफी चर्चा हो रही है आज, जो टैक्स में कटौती हुई है, उसकी उन्होंने तारीफ की है. तो उस पर आप क्या कहते हैं?
What's he saying?
Karthik has said good things about this budget. Appreciated the budget.
The tax exemption.
He's welcomed the government's move of exempting 7 lakh rupees.
That is his view. I don't know if he has moved to the new tax regime. I don't know. That is his view. See, 5.6 crore people have fallen below the poverty line in the last 3 years, thanks to the pandemic and other reasons. Now, to assume that the poor will remain poor and 1% of this country will accumulate the wealth, that's an assumption which we reject as a cruel, cynical assumption. You have to reduce inequality. You have to ensure that the middle class grows. You have to ensure that more people below the poverty line go above the poverty line. Please read the Azim Premji University report. Crores of people have been pushed below the poverty line. And whatever middle class there is, you are denying any relief to that middle class unless that middle class taxpayer moves to the new tax regime. And that is a paltry relief. If you do the calculations, and that will burden this statement, you do the calculation, there is really no benefit except in the middle two slabs. There is really no benefit even under the new tax regime. Now, I can't read the mind of the government or the Prime Minister or the Finance Minister. It's quite clear that they have forgotten the poor. They have practically forgotten the middle class. So, you can only conclude that they are relying upon other factors and other forces to win an election. Well, I don't know. This question should be put to the Prime Minister. Of course, I understand you will never give it an opportunity. But you put the question to the Finance Minister at least. You see, what is promised is 100 days of employment a year. Now, the economic survey says the Manrega demand has increased. Over 6 crore households have asked for work. Only 5.7 crore households got work. And the average number of days they got work is 42. So we don't have a full Manrega. We have got a less than a half Manrega. They don't get work. All the households don't get work. And even the work they get is only 42 days a year. And every state is saying arrears of Manrega wages are due. So actually, Manrega is being squeezed from all sides. Don't give work to everybody who demands. Don't give him or her 100 days work and hold back the wages. So it's being squeezed from all sides. Well, I don't know what state got what. You have to, but you have to look into it. But the fact is that in 22-23, they promised to transfer 3,34,339 crore. They will transfer only 2,70,936 crore. What is the use of announcing packages if money is not transferred? They have transferred, or they will transfer by 31st of March this year, 70,000 crore less than what was promised. Now, this is the budget number. They can't transfer any more because once this budget is approved, they cannot transfer anything more than 2,70,936 crore. So the state should be asking, where is the money that you promised us? You promised to transfer 3,34,000 crore. You are transferring only 2,70,000 crore. That is the question which chief ministers must ask. And I hope they will. No, no, that is not part of the budget speech or the budget press conference. That you should ask separately. Anyway, the party has already made a statement. Did you put the question to the finance minister a couple of hours ago?
Any other question?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.